We're gonna nail this technology at some point, and at that point it's gonna be scary.
It'd be nice to be smooth, wouldn't it?
It would be nice to be smooth. I'm gonna blame it on everything that I don't have control over at this point, Craig. But good evening to everybody that's watching us. We are going to fix all the technical difficulties at some point. I am Kyle Thompson.
And I'm Craig Blaine.
And this is Apex News Above the Noise podcast. Tonight, a major development in one of Kentucky's most shocking murder cases. A controversial bill impacting Kentucky State University is headed to the governor's desk. The state budget battle heats up and what it means for retirees. The Supreme Court takes up birthright citizenship in a case that could reshape the Constitution and how we handle immigration. Gas prices are climbing across the country. NASA prepares for a historic return to the moon, or a first time to the moon, if you will. And in sports, Kentucky basketball continues to make aggressive moves on and off the court. So let's get right into it. Craig, tonight we begin with a major development in one of the most unbelievable, hard to even fathom cases involving a murder in Kentucky history. Former Letcher County Sheriff Sean Mickey Steins is accused of killing Judge Kevin Mullins and is now asking the court to remove the judge presiding over the case. In a newly filed affidavit, Steins is requesting a special judge, arguing he cannot receive a fair and impartial trial under the current judge, Christopher Coron. The defense points to a judicial meeting just days before the killing, where Coron and Mullins were seen seated near each other, arguing that alone creates what they call an appearance of impropriety. Craig, your thoughts on a case like this? It's interesting because this is perhaps one of the most shocking murder cases that we've ever dealt with in the Commonwealth, and this one is at least intriguing. It's intriguing because once you started to, people had opinions immediately, but once you started hearing some of the other aspects that were coming out, and big props to those individuals who've gone down and done some tremendous reporting down there, all of a sudden the tenor of the story changed, and now the support for Mickey Steins and some of the folks who are involved in this has completely changed. Your thoughts?
Well, if I remember this correctly, because I haven't read on it recently, the sheriff accused the judge of having something to do with his daughter. Is that right? No,
in fact, what actually ended up happening was that was the initial thought, and in fact, most people in Kentucky believe that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. But what had essentially transpired up to this point is a deputy jailer, and the jail is attached to the courthouse. There are also deputy sheriffs, dealing with this, was involved in a long time escapade with multiple people in the jail, inmates. They were essentially having improper relationships with these inmates. It got the county sued, and we believe that Mickey Steins, he had been deposed just recently before this incident, and it appears that he reached a breaking point regarding all of this, and that the judge and perhaps other members of staff were all involved. And so now we're in this idea of we're going to need to find out what the facts truly were in here. Initially, it was reported that, or at least leaked, that there may have been a situation where the judge and perhaps Stein's at the time 17-year-old daughter may have had a relationship. That has been proven to be categorically false. And in fact, what it appears now is that there was a rampant improper set of things happening in the courthouse, and that perhaps Mickey Stein had actually been either threatened or told not to go to the press, or upset about some things he found out in that deposition. So it's really, really shocking. It's a shocking case in a very small area down in Whitesburg, down the southeast region of Kentucky. And now we have a situation where the same defendant is asking for the sitting judge to be removed several months into his defense. Obviously, there's been no trial or anything at that point. But I would encourage you guys, if you haven't gone and watched any of the Mountain Press on this, it's astounding the things that they found. So
true, the sheriff walked in there and just shot him at point blank range.
Yeah, he did. There was an argument that ensued in the judge's office, and it's the irony of all this, and a lot of people will point this out. The cameras that caught this, that caught this horrific tragedy, were placed there because of prior complaints about what was happening in the judge's chambers. It's
the law judge or the county judge executive.
This is the law judge, district judge down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said, like third world stuff, come in there and they're knocking off judges. This reminds me of the Paul Browning case way back in the day in Harlan County.
Yeah.
He tried to kill a couple school board members, and one of them was my uncle.
Oh, wow.
Put an altitude bomb in Uncle John's plane, but the guys that he hired out of North Carolina were from FBI. There's 3 FBI undercover FBI agents. So they didn't. John was in the coal mining business, had a lot of money back then, and he put an altitude bomb. When it got so hot, it would go off. So, and this is worse.
Yeah.
Take a darn judge, a law judge. That's what I said, third world stuff.
Yeah, it's also interesting. There was all of this particular motion comes from, there was a Kentucky Judicial Commission on Mental Health meeting that was held on September the 12th, just 7 days before the killing. And there is a video and some photos of the sitting judge, the judge that's presiding over this case, this murder case, and Judge Mullins sitting very close together in a video from that meeting. Now, the interesting thing is Mullins' widow was also present, and the defense believes there may have been a related social or dinner event connected to that meeting, although there's a lot of assumptions going on there. The affidavit argues that this proximity combined with timing creates an appearance of impropriety. It's not about proving actual bias, and they don't argue actual bias. They're just saying that there is the look of impropriety, and as you and I have talked many times before, it is the look of impropriety that causes ethical issues, not the actual impropriety.
Reality. And this guy, I just can't get over how a law enforcement officer, was drugs involved, or was it just jailhouse prostitution?
Essentially jailhouse prostitution. And it wasn't so much prostitution as it was if you do X, you'll get to be put on the county's home incarceration program.
Well, I'll tell you, if this wouldn't make a movie.
Oh, I'd say they're probably already thinking of who they're going to cast for that. I
another episode, something like that, or several episodes, or certainly if Netflix can do a special on the Bourbon Heist here.
Oh yeah,
they could do one for that once the trial's done.
Yeah, according to Mountain Top Media, they say, and they're quoted, "It is difficult to believe the judge's proximity, quote, will not affect his judgment." Now, take that for what it's worth.
What's that mean?
Well, in the photo and video, they're saying it's hard to believe that these guys were sitting so close that but there's actually no proof that they even had any relationship or knew each other or, were casual friends or anything. The judiciary is a small, fraternity of individuals, so there's only so many people that are there, so you know who they are. It's just, it's an interesting set of circumstances at this point, and I think if this is any indication of what we are going to see coming up, we are probably in for a wild ride with regard to that particular case.
And that's based on that photo of them being together on
That's it.
Somewhere.
That's it.
So if this is even less than going out to eat.
100%.
They're on a panel together. So like if you were seen with a judge or I was seen with a judge, What if a judge came and ate at my restaurant? Could that be used?
I think that's exactly what they would say. They would say, you can't be impartial about Craig Blanton. You ate his pizza, right? And
I've known you since high school.
yeah, the problem is in these small counties, these small locales, there's a lot of these motions a lot of the time simply because everybody does know each other. Everybody knows your family. Everybody grew up together. Everybody went to the same high school. They're all probably about the same age. You have kids in the same schools and things. It's just, it is going to be interesting to see where that goes.
And they're trying to move it, right?
They're trying to get a new judge at this point.
Oh.
So
John's case got moved to Mercer County because of that.
yeah,
Knowing everybody, and being school board and sheriff, too many people knew all of them.
yep,
It was 2 school board members. He tried to run one over and put a bomb in the other guy in Uncle John's plane. It was crazy.
can you imagine?
It was the Harlan County Sheriff, Paul Browning, against them two. And he wanted to raise school taxes to hire more deputies so he could take more marijuana and more moonshine in the front door.
You don't,
Sell it up the
yeah,
back door.
yeah, you don't mess with people's moonshine or marijuana.
So once he got out of jail, a few years later, he got back into business,
Yeah,
and they found him in a pond in a car.
yeah.
Underwater. He was dead, and they found the guy that killed him too.
Mountain justice is a little different than it is around the rest of the country. So, moving on to another update on this story we've covered a couple times here. This is a major follow-up out of Frankfurt, a bill that has been generating a lot of discussion and serious discussion across the state, not just in the capital city, is Senate Bill 185, and it has cleared another hurdle. Senate Bill 185 is the legislation targeting governance changes at Kentucky State University, and has now passed the Kentucky House and is headed to the governor's desk. At this point, Craig, I think the question truly becomes, is anything going to stop this? Your thoughts about where we are with the Senate Bill 185 and what you think will occur at this point?
Yeah, I don't think anything's going to stop it. And the latest update they had was to define KSU, Kentucky State University, as a land grant polytechnic institution.
And why is that important, Craig?
Well, it's our only public land grant university. I think the other one is UK, but there's another HBCU in Kentucky, Louisville, called Simmons College.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the only land. I don't know. I mean, maybe Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, or maybe they're land grant polytechnic institutions too. But there's a lot of other requirements that I don't think we went over. If we got a minute, I'll go over those.
Well, the key provisions were that expands the state oversight of KSU's finance and operations, increased accountability requirements for university leadership, and allows for more direct involvement in budgeting and administrative decisions with the state legislature directly. And that's kind of where things get heated because KSU is one of Kentucky's historically black colleges and universities, and critics say the bill crosses a line. Opponents argue it represents state overreach into university governance. It undermines institutional independence and raises concerns about equity. And what one article I read today in a comment that came out of some meetings that came out is that this was quote unquote targeting of an HBCU in some way to make it fall under the purview of the state. And quite honestly, we've talked about this a lot. The problem is that KSU had ongoing financial struggles. They had leadership instability for years and years and a need for stronger guardrails. And to be quite blunt, as we talked about before, without this option, there was basically only the nuclear option, and that was they were going to shut the doors at the end of this fiscal year, most likely, into this academic year. And so I think it's a little disingenuous to say that it's targeting. The only thing I think it's targeting is you have a university that is $20 million in debt on paper and can't get that money back out, and yet the legislature is once again trying to keep the doors open. I think this is a good option. It's definitely a good option compared to what what the reality is.
Right.
You know, they were going to close. So I think that's exactly where we are at this point. Will the governor veto it?
Well, that if he's smart, he won't. But you know, the legislature and the Council of Post-Secondary Education, they've got tight rein on all university spending, nothing over $5,000. And the real kicker is they're going to go in EMARS, which is the state government's accounting system.
Yep.
That means all the legislative aides can monitor on a daily or an hourly basis on what KSU's spending money on.
Right.
A lot of people are upset about that. Then they're going to change. You know, we talked about before. They're going to upgrade the requirements to come into the university being in a 2.5 GPA out of high school, and where it says create admissions criteria for KSU's the 2.5, and people have had problems with that. And then Dr. Capo's got complete control over everything. He can, if a student gets over $1,000 in debt, they're gone, and only Dr. Capo can allow them back in if they're over 1,000. You know, talking to the parents or something. They have got tight constraints to make sure KSU succeeds.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that a lot of people I've talked to around Frankfort and even those in the state that have reached out to me, is it overreach in the sense that would this happen at UK or U of L? Well, the short answer is no, and the long answer is UK and U of L are not $20 million in debt.
Yeah, you can't compare them.
Yeah, and so I think that's the problem that we're trying to make, compare these apples and oranges.
Did you see where they can grab your state income tax returns?
Yeah, absolutely.
1,000.
Yeah, one of the things that they have said is that if you are over $1,000 in debt and you're 3 months late on that after that payment plan is put in place, that they can intercept your state revenue check, and that. Yeah, and that's going to be something that is going to be interesting to see how that happens. Nothing shocks me with this governor and the legislature. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, they do not get along. So it's one of those things where if the legislature passed a law that said that the sky is blue, I believe Governor Beshear would veto that, and vice versa. I think if Governor Beshear made a comment about our grass is called bluegrass for a reason, they'd argue and say it's really green, and that's unfortunate. But at a time where you have individuals with political motives, it would not shock me. Nothing would shock me if this became a political point as well. And with the governor obviously moving on to hoping to move on to bigger and better things, it would not shock me that he turned this political. So,
do you think because remember, I don't know if you remember, you might have been too young back in the day.
I'm pretty old, Craig.
But back in the day, they talked about shutting KSU down, and every big leader across from Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, all of them came to Frankfort to make sure that it was closed. So now, if Governor Beshear runs for president and he doesn't veto this, will his opponents use it?
Yeah.
And he's hurting the black community across America if he'll do this in his own town.
Yeah.
Will he do this across the country?
It's very interesting to me because I remember when that happened, and the political shift, at least on a local and state level, has shifted so dramatically that if this was a a Democrat-led House and or Senate or both, now I think you would see dramatic differences in what would happen on out of legislation, and also what the governor would do. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. People have differing opinions on that.
And it went through the Senate 38-0.
Yeah.
So 7 Democrats voted for it. They had a few stipulations. One of the 2.5 GPA to enter college, but they still voted for it. So that might give Governor Beshear some cover.
It could. It could. I did not see the House vote. Was it also unanimous, or were there some dissenters? Did you see the actual vote? Oh, I lost your audio there. Did you mute yourself for a second?
There we
go. Yeah.
It's my machine over here.
That's all right. You didn't see an actual vote?
I'll look and see.
All right. While you're looking at that, I will move on to the next story that is obviously important to you, Craig, and others. House Bill 500, which is now the Kentucky State budget offering from the House, is now in conference negotiations between the House and Senate. That may actually have changed from the time that we put that story in here just an hour ago to now. I know that they are planning on working late into the night. A key issue on that House bill is whether retirees will actually receive a 13th check. Another big issue that we will have to dive into. Go ahead. What was it?
In the House, 90-1.
90-1. And no idea who the
vote was. Shane Baker, a Republican out of Somerset.
Interesting. So moving back to House Bill 500, the key issue is obviously that 13th check for retirees. As Senator Williams had talked the other day, he believed that they would be very happy, that the state retirees would be very happy, that it was going to be if you were in Tier 1A, as they call it, you were going to get a full check. If you were in Tier 1B, it was going to be he believed it would be like about a 50% check, and if you were any of the others, it'd be about 25%. But that language is not in the current version of House Bill 500. You just sent me a note earlier discussing the fact that the House Caucus, the retirees organization, essentially said that it's not in the language, and we don't know what's going to happen. The House has supported retiree relief measures normally, and the Senate has taken a more cautious fiscal approach in the past. But this time, it seemed like the Senate was willing to make those accommodations, and the House appears to have pulled that out.
Yeah, that's correct. And in one raise since 2008, it was a 1% that for retirees. State employees got some in the early 2020s. But retirees since 2008 have had a 1% increase. And if you remember, just during the Biden 4 years, inflation went up 22.1%.
Yeah, and I think the thing that people, if you're not a state retiree, if you're not in the state retirement system, you don't know this, but people have not received a raise in pay as a retiree one time in 18 years.
Correct.
So with one small, it was a 2.5%, or was it 1%? A 1% increase, and we've had inflation at about 21% year over year added together. It makes it very difficult for individuals who are in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s.
The 21.1% was just under President Biden's term.
Right.
It was each year. Inflation works cumulatively.
That's correct.
And each year they try to get about 2%. So from 2020 to 2025, it was up. Inflation was 25%, and now it'll be about 27% because it just keeps piling on top of each other, like interest on your savings account.
And you mentioned to me we had done some research and we had checked, and the average retiree's annual pay was how much?
$18,000.
So your average gross. So your average retiree that has been maybe retired 20 years, their average pay is $18,000. The gross pay is $18,000.
Yeah, it's shocking. I'm gonna double check it because that was years ago data. There's been a lot of retirees since.
Sure,
but I'll check that. Thanks to AI.
The other thing and while you're looking that up, I'm gonna expound on this a little bit. Another big concern in House Bill 500, and we'll have to see what the language is that comes out of committee, is there was pressure on the state health system to essentially make a number of cuts, but what was probably going to happen is there was going to be a shift of responsibility, not just on retirees, but also on state employees, and depending upon which health plan you're in, it could be a significant amount of increase in costs that you were going to have to pay towards your health insurance plan. And if that language doesn't change, and if there's not work to make that happen, even though you have individuals who are making significantly more than others who are in the retirement system, they're going to be paying potentially paying a significant more amount for their health insurance plan.
I'm paying for my wife. I'm on Medicare, but I'm paying for $900 a month just for my wife, just to be, she's not a state employee, but to have her under health insurance. The non-hazardous state employee is $21,328.
That's still shocking.
It's really low. Yeah.
Yeah, that is absolutely.
You got to go work. You got to get another job after you hang it up.
Well, and I see that a lot. So folks who come in and are writing wills and trusts and things like that, and they come in, but they have to come in at their lunch break, and they're 60, 70 years old, and they're coming in on their lunch break, and I'm saying, I thought you were a state retiree, and I have to have a job. I have to work because I can't live off $20,000 a year, and that's unfortunate. It just is, and I think it's been on the backs. There's 30,000 state employees, a little less now, as attrition has happened. But you're talking about in central Kentucky and in the Frankfort area specifically, that is a lot of our population are state employees. And this House bill and the budget could significantly affect their costs and their income over the next few months.
Be huge. And like, when I started, there were 41,000, and looking up FY22 data, got 27,500 in the executive branch. Now, all together with state police, your other things, jail, prisons, those things. There's it says there's 98,000, but that's parks, state parks, prisons, like Eddyville, the big prisons, all those different. And it might include teachers. It's not.
They have a teachers retirement.
They have their own thing, but it's holding around 30,000 for the last several years.
I guess my last question on this particular issue before we move on, and we have to, is can lawmakers afford not to do anything at this point? And I'll preface it this way, Craig.
Great question. I thought about it.
People aren't joining the state workforce like they used to. When I was growing up, it was a very safe job to have. You joined the state workforce because you got a pension and you also got decent health insurance benefits. You may not have gotten the best pay in the world, but you definitely joined for those two reasons. You don't have a pension anymore. And you also are going to have lousy health insurance potentially at this point. So what's the benefit of joining the state? Can the state continue to not give to state employees and hope that they'll even have a state employee workforce worth anything?
Well, yeah, that's right. Because with a 401k, what's the one thing you got to do? You got to teach the employee to save money.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows how to save money. Just young people. I was guilty of that myself. But if the state employees across Kentucky that are living, that have retired from state government, got together, they could elect the governor. There's 225,000 retirees, something like that, across Kentucky. If they would form a union, per se, whatever you want to say, and vote as a block, they could elect any governor they wanted. That'd be a third of the vote. Generally, it's about a third of the vote that the governor receives. And people rag on state employees. I'm proud to be a state employee. I love my fellow state workers because without them, Kentucky doesn't exist. No roads, no schools, no prisons, no law enforcement, no weather stations, no weather alerts like we're getting some right now.
Yeah, we are getting some
all
right now.
Those things are dependent upon state employees, and yet people joke about them all the time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if you don't have a good state workforce, then the very basics that you need don't get met. Payments to for Medicaid, Medicare, they don't occur. If you want to get your new driver's license, those things don't occur. I mean, it affects every single aspect of your life. And if you don't have a happy and healthy and progressive workforce, you're going to be in trouble. And I think we have some lifers in the House and Senate, and on both sides of the aisle that are woefully unaware of how important the state employees are and what needs to happen with the state employees here in Frankfort.
Yeah, they don't appreciate them, and they might even forget that their staff are state employees, even though they're non-merited LRC. They're still state employees.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. We'll have to keep an eye on that. We will update you guys tomorrow once we get some information back on what happens in the committees, in the conferences as well. I think you will probably see them work long into the night tonight with some potential changes that have to go back and forth.
Remember them holding the clock back in David Williams' day? It'd be midnight, and they'd say, unplug the clock.
Yep.
So, the clock they're looking at doesn't count.
Magically, they always got it done by midnight. I don't know how that always happened, but they were always able to do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we will move on to our next story. This is a big one today. The U.S. Supreme Court heard oral arguments today in a case challenging the scope of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The case centers on an executive order issued by Donald Trump seeking to deny automatic citizenship to children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents. According to SCOTUS blog and the ACLU, the administration argues, quote, jurisdiction, unquote, should be interpreted extremely narrowly. Opponents argue the Constitution clearly guarantees birthright citizenship. The challengers rely heavily on the United States v. Wong Kim Ark, which established that birth on U.S. soil confers citizenship. Justices focused on the meaning of jurisdiction, precedent versus reinterpretation, real-world implications, and it has to be pointed out, President Trump made a rare, this is unprecedented, appearance during oral arguments today. The reason this is so big is because for generations, there has just been such a division of power that the only time those folks are ever in the same room is when they are being introduced or when he is giving the State of the Union. So it's interesting that this is the decision that he has made at this point. A lot of folks will say that the justices were critical of the opinions that were being presented by, or the positions that the Trump administration was putting forward. But as well as I do, sometimes there are decisions that come out and you think that they were going to go a completely different way. We'll have to wait and see here. I will tell you that this is an interesting issue because it would reshape about 125 years, around 150 years of precedent. And the issue is executive power versus judicial precedent, and that is where the clash is. Your thoughts on where we are with birthright citizenship right now?
But isn't it relying on one? I'm looking up the 14th Amendment now. Isn't there one word that the federal government's case or the president's case? There's one.
It's jurisdiction is the word that they are arguing about. Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah, and originally, tell me this. Originally, wasn't this bill to ensure that children of slaves were American citizens?
That is correct. The historically, whether that's what was meant or not, historically, the 14th Amendment and the language within the 14th Amendment regarding birthright citizenship was aimed squarely at the issue of descendants of former enslaved people.
And now we have birthright tourism, which is China sends over tens of thousands of people. China pays for their flight to come to America for a week before their due date. They have their baby, and then they, the couple of days later when they're allowed to fly, they head back to China. Same thing in Mexico. Same thing in Europe. They'll come over here on the East Coast from Europe and have their babies. China and Southeast Asia have their babies, and then they fly back to their home country so they can have dual citizenship. And that's been going on for decades, and it's abusing the hell out of the 14th Amendment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree because I don't think, and the Constitution is what we call a living and breathing document, meaning that it changes with the times as well, and it continues to move forward. But there was this case in the late 1800s. There was a man named Wong Kim Ark. He was born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrant parents, and at the time, his parents were not U.S. citizens. And due to laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act, again, a law barring Chinese citizens from becoming citizens, which is really the only reason that they did not become citizens. He himself was born on U.S. Soil, and after traveling to China and attempting to return home to the United States, Wong Kim Ark was denied re-entry by federal authorities. The government argued his parents weren't citizens, therefore he couldn't be citizens, and so they changed the way that you looked at birthright citizenship. And I shouldn't say they changed it; they defined it, and they said that the key holding is that anyone born in the United States is a citizen regardless of their parents' citizenship status. Now,
that was late 1800s, right?
That was late 1800s. A lot has changed. Air travel and,
There was a thing called an airplane.
Yeah.
Birthright tourism.
And I don't think that I can't say. I have a hard time believing that is what they would mean, that, if you wanted to take a trip here and have your baby here, that your baby would be a U.S. citizen. And I'll also say this. We're the only country who has such an illogical thought process. There is no other country.
And then when the baby's born, what's the term? It's called an anchor baby.
Yes.
And then with other immigration laws, then they can bring mom and dad in with the child. Then they can bring in 2 or 3 more each. Grandma,
Yes.
grandpa, 17 cousins. And that's what's led to where we're at today.
It is an interesting set of circumstances, and I'm interested to see where they go with this, simply because of the hot button issue of immigration right now. Now, is this the solution to the immigration problems? Absolutely not. This is just a component of that, and perhaps there's a second tier that the President Trump's administration would like to see, where you can apply, for your baby to be here if you have some type of status and citizenship. But that's not what the law is, and that's not what the precedent is. Now, I've heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio, I've heard Vice President J.D. Vance. They have made compelling arguments of the fact that we're the only country that does this, and the lunacy of us doing this. Right. In their words, they called it lunacy. Right. But it will be interesting to see, because if this puts it to bed that this is exactly what it's supposed to be, even in the 21st century with travel and all of these different things, how does that change how the rest of the world still tries to become American citizens? Which is another fascinating take.
But we still allow 1.1 million per year that, say, just for lack of another term, say go through Ellis Island, do their studies, take their tests, and then get sworn in as American citizens. That takes about 5 years.
It does.
Yeah, and everybody's okay with that. It's just when you get flooded like we did the previous 4 years under Biden, with anywhere from 10 to 20 million people just crossing the border, and we let them in.
Well, and the other thing you have to take into consideration is, regardless of what that number is, whether it's 1 million people or whether it's 30 million people, the fact that those people, that individuals came into the United States borders and then they had babies. So what is happening at this point is you have the Trump administration trying to deport millions of individuals, at least hundreds of thousands at this point, of individuals, and a bunch of those folks are saying, wait a second now, we may have come here through ill-gotten gain, if you will, but we've had 3 or 4 children, in the last 6 years. And in one case, I read that an individual, she had 4 children in 6 years. So it's hard to then utilize the precedent of the 14th Amendment and the Wong Kim Ark case and look at that and go, I mean, the language is clear in that if you're born here, you're an American citizen. And these folks came into the United States illegally, and they had children, so what do we do then?
It would remember all the babies that were handed over the border wall. Mm-hmm. Texas, handed from Coyote over to a Border Patrol guy, 1-year-old babies just handed over, or even when they climbed up the wall and dropped them down to waiting hands. So once that baby's here, then the parents can petition and say, "Hey, it's our child over there. We don't have any family there. We got to come in too."
Well, and what they are seeing now is there are numerous indications that some of those very young children who came across, they are now claiming that those children were born here because there are no birth records of those children.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So in the last 10 months now, probably maybe even longer, there's been 0 border crossings, 0, unprecedented in American history. And so that's working. So if a Democrat wins next time, what's it going to be?
have
They're
to.
going to open the border wide open again. It's locked down now. It's going to. I mean, there's just so much to that. It could be a whole show all in itself.
It could. It will be interesting to see how whether the Supreme Court relies wholly on precedent, whether they try to carve out a new rule, or whether and I think if they rely wholly on precedent, and this is just my own personal opinion, that's a bit of a punt. It's easy to say, well, there's a law on that already. And you could write a 1-page ruling on that. And if that's the precedent that they want to keep, but we've seen some precedents overturned in the last, even 50 years. So they could be overturned. It will be interesting to see. It will affect domestic policy in the next election and all the elections going forward, depending upon.
California. I mean, it's broke their hospital system. It's broke their Medicaid system because of so many illegal aliens, and that's the federal government defined term for the illegal immigrant is the illegal alien.
Yeah.
Look what it's done to California's hospital system. I mean, it's bankrupt. It's beyond bankrupt.
Yeah. Well, now moving back to something hitting Americans a little closer to home, right at the gas pump, Craig. Gas prices are climbing again across the country. According to AAA, the national average is now $3.99 per gallon. This is as of this morning. And here in Kentucky, the average sits lower, around $3.71. But that gap may not last. Prices are being driven. And here's the thing that people forget. Prices are being driven because of seasonal increase in demand, along with oil and market fluctuations and refinery constraints. So, yes, the war in Iran is absolutely causing a problem. There is some issues, but a majority of our oil doesn't come from the Strait of Hormuz. Only a little over 2%. So that's not always the issue. But this is the time of year where right around Easter, people are starting to travel more. It's starting to get warmer. People are driving, and supply demand. We don't have as much supply right now because people are using a lot more. So the price goes up. I do think that the doomsday predictions that we're headed towards $7 gas is just that's right. Just Southern California.
No, California's closing.
Yeah.
Their Valero and Phillips Petroleum refineries this year. One of them's already closed.
Yep.
And they're expecting before the taking out the leadership of Iran, they were expecting $7 a gallon gas because I didn't know this till recently. California gets most of their gasoline from Southeast Asia, along the coast of South, not America. And then, I've had it's been talking points on my Facebook page. Most of America's oil comes from Canada and then Mexico because our refineries along the southern coast are made for what's called heavy crude. Mm-hmm. And so that's what our oil refineries are set up. We haven't put a new refinery until since 1976. And what we produce through our shale oil and our other oil deposits in Alaska and all over America is called light crude or sweet crude. And we don't have any refineries up for that. So just in the last 3 weeks, the Trump administration had green-lighted a new $300 billion light crude oil refinery in Brownsville, Texas, that will help solve some of these problems. Like if Iran or somebody else decides to close down the Strait of Hormuz again, we'll just say, screw it, y'all deal with it, and we're going to produce our own gasoline here.
Well,
That's the whole point of the new refinery.
And whether you were a fan of it or not, shutting down key pipelines as well, bringing in oil from further north in North America, the Keystone Pipeline and others, ending fracking and things of that nature, that does impact supply. Whether you want to complain about your gas price or not, doing those things cut down on supply. Interestingly enough, that's when a lot of folks went to electric cars, and now those same folks are moving away from electric cars because of politics. But that's just the wild world
early
we live in.
adopters, like anything. I stood in line 4 hours to get the first iPhone.
Right.
The early adopters will buy it, but the question is, will the early adopters buy the second EV?
Yeah.
And they consistently haven't.
Yeah.
So because of range anxiety and all that stuff.
Well, from rising prices on things here on Earth, we're going to switch gears to a mission reaching far beyond Earth. NASA's Artemis II is set to mark a major milestone in space exploration. This will be the first crewed mission to the moon. They're not landing on the moon, but the first crewed mission, meaning they have a crew with them, to the moon in more than 50 years. I'm actually looking up right now at the Artemis launch at their NASA's coverage right now. Everything is still on board for a launch in about 37 minutes, which will put us at about 6:24. Yeah, the launch window. And if it doesn't happen, you guys see here on the screen, this is the updated listing of when the launch will be. It'll be 6:24 on the East Coast, 4:24 Mountain, Central is 5:24. That's the window. Now that's when the countdown will start. If everything goes off, everything is still they're still ready to go tonight. Here's the interesting thing about this, and for folks who are space nerds, the rocket could be visible across parts of the eastern United States, including potentially right here in Kentucky. If skies are clear, which they're starting to not be, but if you happen to catch a clear area here in Kentucky or on the East Coast, viewers should look to the southeastern sky shortly after launch. The mission represents the beginning of a new era, laying the groundwork for future lunar landings and beyond. There are a lot of folks who are good friends of ours, Craig, who will say it'll be fun to go to the moon for the first time. And there are others that will say the technology was available allegedly in the late 60s, early 70s, and NASA scientists have said we lost the technology to be able to do that. Others will say the Van Allen radiation belt prevents us from getting to the moon. That's why everything we do is in essentially low Earth orbit. All the stuff with our satellites.
Low Earth orbit.
What's that?
We never got out of low Earth orbit with manned expeditions like we are attempting today.
Yeah, this is going to be this is world changing in the sense that we are starting space exploration to a real level at this point. There's a lot of talk about it at this point, and while the naysayers are out there, it's still pretty cool. I got to admit, we all wanted to be astronauts at one point.
This is going to be and some nerdy numbers. This flight is around the moon.
Yep.
So it's going to be the longest human flight by a mile ever a human has flown into outer space of 685,000 miles. Previously, Apollo 13 was 248,000 miles. So this is almost triple that. And there'll be what I checked to see what the speed would be once they reach official outer space.
Yeah.
And they'll be flying about 7 miles a second or 25,000 miles per hour. So they're going to be getting it, but it's still going to take some time to get to the moon, of course. The 10-day mission. 4 people. You got the photo of the astronauts?
I don't have them up here, but
okay. No big deal.
Yeah.
Let me
off
their names because they deserve it.
Yeah.
Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen are mission specialists. This is going to be exciting as can be. It'll probably be on every channel on TV. Plus the NASA Twitter account or NASA X account and NASA YouTube channel. They're already up. They've been up since about noon today.
Yeah. And I was watching on YouTube last night just to see they had the live shot. You could watch it. That's still
kicking off gases and stuff.
Yeah,
it's really cool. You put the photo up, didn't you?
I did.
Itself.
Yeah. So
this is going to be pretty exciting. This is the first time in 50 years that we've done something like this. So when Elon Musk has said, "The heck with the moon," he says, "I'm going to Mars." Going
all the way to Mars. So, well, as soon as you hop off our show tonight, you can turn on the news and watch it occur. If you have kids, make sure you bring the kids. Let them watch this. This is historic. That's happening tonight, regardless of if you're a conspiracy theorist or not. It's still historic, and this is something that. Right now, America needs things we can come together on, and I think we can all come together that space flight and innovation is pretty dang cool. So in our 250th year, we're going back to the moon. So that is pretty cool. Finally, tonight we'll move into sports. Back here at home, Kentucky basketball continues to make headlines. There are big developments for the Kentucky Wildcat basketball team. Kentucky is adding former NBA All-Star Mo Williams to Mark Pope's staff. The move comes just after his son Mason Williams committed to Kentucky, and it could help the Wildcats land their biggest target at this point, elite prospect Tyron Stokes, one of the top players in the country.
Yep, he played great last night in the McDonald's All-Star game. Wasn't selfish, good passes, good rebounds. Looked like a super good player. I guess that's why he's number one player.
Yeah, makes sense, right?
He's going to take his time. He said he's not in a hurry to announce. There was rumor all over internet that he was going to announce after the game. You know, I sent you a couple of tweets that were posted, and unfortunately it wasn't true. But he's still got Kentucky and Kansas as 1 and 1A, no favor over either one. But like we said last night, if Bill Self retires, then we got
it's
into play. And Oregon got Nike money.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I think it'll be next week. I think it'll be next weekend. I don't think it'll be this weekend coming up. I think you're about 8 or 9 days out. He's taking his time, but right at the time that the transfer portal opens up, he's going to make an announcement, and I am holding out. I'm holding out hope that it will be the Wildcats that he chooses.
1 a.m. or it's 1 minute after the final, time, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So it could be at 10:30.
Could be in the middle of the game for all we know, but it's gonna be around then. So another name to watch for the Wildcats, Jake Feldhouse, Kentucky Mr. Basketball from last year, and son of former Wildcat Darren Feldhouse, has requested a release from Belmont and is expected to enter the portal. He is coming off a season where he averaged over 20 points and 13 rebounds per game. He does bring production, and he is a big, tough kid, about 6'7", 6'8". I didn't do 6'6", 6'7", because the kids would go crazy. But the question will be whether Kentucky pursues him. That'll be seen. His name's going to be on the radar. People are going to talk about it. He is the son of a blue blood, the bluest of blue blood, one of the unforgettables in Darren Feldhouse. It's his father.
And his dad, Darren's dad played at UK. So this would be a grandson playing at UK. Except Darren Feldhouse said today that he was extremely disappointed that UK didn't even recruit him at all. I guess they didn't get any kind of interest, phone call, or even a letter of anything.
Well, it was right after Mark Pope's first year. He probably thought he was going to get nothing but 5-star recruits coming in. Obviously, we had one of the biggest payrolls. It was not the biggest payroll, and it wasn't $22 million. But but it was a big payroll, and they probably thought they were going to get some bigger players. I understand the disappointment. I still think if UK reaches out and offers him, he's probably going to come home. That's just my thought. But
didn't they win the state tournament this year? Was he at Madison Central?
He was at Madison Central, but GRC won the state tournament this year.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Moving on to local sports. last night, Western Hills defeated Bluegrass United 10-2. Franklin County just fell short. There's one of those scores you were talking about, Craig, 13-15 at Collins. And the Frankfort High Panthers fell to Henry County 4-3. And then on the girls' side, Frankfort High dropped a pair of games to Danville in a doubleheader, 8-1 and 10-2. And Madison Central laid it on the Franklin County Lady Flyers.
I had Madison Central on my mind. Was the team here.
Yeah, tonight, Franklin in baseball, Frankfort is at Fern Creek. Carroll County is at Western Hills. And in softball, Bracken County is at Franklin County. Western Hills is at South Oldham. We have some late-breaking news at this point, Craig. The House and Senate Republicans have agreed to pass a funding bill to end the historic partial government shutdown. There is a resolution to essentially pay everybody else through May as part of DHS, but it looks like TSA and everybody else is finally going to get paid. And then this fight's not over. It's going to drag out into the summer to determine if there's going to be funding laid aside for.
I don't see Immigration and Customs Enforcement or Border Patrol in there.
They are not in there at this point. There is a binding resolution that allows them to continue to be paid while they are moving forward to have those discussions, but they are not part of the funding bill.
Do you think the Democrats, the radical ones for sure, we know, have said just get rid of ICE completely, don't fund it at all? You think that's across the board with the Democrats?
Yes.
They want to eliminate Immigration and Customs Enforcement?
Yes.
Okay, so you said yes. So why would they want to do that?
It's politically beneficial to them at this point.
Or is it
no other reason.
Or is it to allow everybody and their brother across the world to come into America, hoping they're going to get more votes?
Which is politically beneficial for them.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly. I honestly, the argument used to be that non-citizens aren't voting. It's been proven to have happened multiple times just in the last year. There was a case recently in the last few weeks where an individual claimed that they had voted multiple times. It's just the truth of the reality. If that's what you want to happen, great. I do believe that's what they want to happen, and I believe that that's going to be their position. So, whether it happens or not, whether that's your opinion and you want that to happen, great. If it's not, then I think that you have a completely different take.
Maybe one day as we get going along here and figuring this technology out better, we'll have somebody from the other side come and debate these kind of items. I think that'd be interesting TV.
Yeah, if you want to come on here and talk to us about your opinions on those things, we're happy to bring you on. We will end tonight with today is April Fool's Day, as everybody knows. I pulled a prank on my wife Jen. I'm sure other people did. The University of Kentucky was not above this either. Today, the University of Kentucky posted that we're going big with the blue this fall, and said that they were going to color the turf blue at Kroger Field, or as I like to call it, Clickless Stadium. And obviously that was a joke. Boise State, who does have a blue field, actually got into the joke with us, and Boise State football wrote back in a tweet on X, cease and desist. So good for them for being a part of that. It's not a terrible idea, but UK football also announced late this afternoon.
It does look good.
It does. UK football announced late this afternoon that they had hired a director of recruiting. I can give you her name very shortly. It is Erin Love. She was previously at Tulsa and at the University of North Carolina. So she is going to be moving into that role. If you get any value out of this show, I want to thank you for joining Apex News Above the Noise. From the courtroom to the Capitol to the Supreme Court and all the way to the edge of space today, we have basically covered it all, Craig. And if you have gotten anything out of this, make sure that you like, share, and absolutely subscribe to our channel so you can catch us every single weekday at 5 p.m. I am Kyle Thompson. I am joined every single day by my good friend Craig Blanton. We want to thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys tomorrow at 5 p.m. We hope that you guys Have an absolutely great night. Thanks for joining us.